It's time for MacBreak Weekly, brand new show for 2022. The whole gang is here. Rene, Andy, Alex. We'll talk about Apple becoming the first $3 trillion company. What does that really mean? Augmented reality, is it truly the future? And is Bluetooth holding back AirPods? Yes, there's lots of rumors too. It's all coming up next for MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 799, recorded Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. Rubber suits with ping pong balls. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. And by ZipRecruiter. Several industries are projected to grow this year. If you own a business in one of those growing industries they need to hire, go to ZipRecruiter. They find qualified candidates for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter free today at ziprecruiter.com/MacBreak. And by Imperfect Foods. Imperfect Foods is catching the food that's falling through the cracks of our food system by sourcing quirky yet delicious foods. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering listeners 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com and use the promo code MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from that little tiny company in Cupertino, that little $3 trillion company in Cupertino, California. On the horn with us via the virtual Skype, Zoom, Discord link, it's Rene Ritchie. Hello, Rene.
That's $4 trillion Canadian, Leo Laporte.
Is it? That's pretty good.
I don't know. It goes up and down so much, but I'm just going to claim it. I'm going to claim it as an national honor.
That's pretty good. Also from Rene Ritchie from youtube.com/Rene Ritchie, of course. And also with us from WGBH of Boston, Andy Ihnatko. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. It's hard to get used to actually being back at work, even though I'm still in my same old house. It's like I did my first like real shave in like 10 days, like not the usual, just like, oh, it's getting itchy, so I'll just buzz off a little. I'm talking about like lather, wet, razor. It's like, wow, I remember doing this back in 2021.
The good old days. And of course from officehours.global and 090.media, Mr. Alex Lindsay. Hello, Alex. Happy New Year to all three of you.
Happy New Year.
2022. Our first MacBreak Weekly of the new year. And Apple is no longer a $3 trillion company. Just like that, it happens. Only $2.945 trillion currently.
Did you guys sell off? Did you see the number and just sell off? Is this your fault?
Sell-off, yeah.
Exactly.
They hit it. Okay, that was my... I wonder, I bet you there are people who say, you know, they set limits, price to earning limits, and say, okay, as soon as it hits $3 trillion, I want to cash out. Is it meaningful in any other way? I mean, really?
Yeah. No, this is stock evaluation. This is the sum total of investor confidence in the company. So it's meaningful in that people seem to think that their roadmap is doing very well, but that doesn't mean that every decision they're going to make in the next 5 years is going to be a good one, or that the Apple that we know today is going to be the one that we know 2 years from now.
Yeah, and I mean it is valuable to the company,
share.
right? Because the price per share helps them acquire talent. Didn't they just say they're going to pay bonuses to employees that don't leave for Facebook?
They're rumored to be throwing a couple $100,000 around here and there.
Don't leave for Facebook, please.
There's a lot of Facebook does the same thing.
Yeah.
We know some people that get those bonuses.
Yeah,
and so a lot of retention where companies will give key employees, I mean, 180,000 is I think what they were talking about. I've heard of much larger numbers handed to people with 4-year vesting. So, that hanging on to your key, in many companies, there is literally a handful. I mean, in a company as big as Apple, it's a couple hundred probably, that if you pulled any significant number out of them, things stop working. And but it's really not, everyone's important, but there are certain people that you got to make sure that you don't lose to maintain continuity between all the products. And so those are folks that oftentimes get stuff thrown at them.
It has some value of course.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's really that connected between. I mean, it might be connected to Facebook hiring a bunch of their folks, but again, all of these companies have these incentive systems that they're using constantly. So the fact that it came out right now, I mean, and a lot of them come at the end of the year, it's just how they manage it. So it's not that uncommon. So I'm not sure how much of this is coincidental versus causal.
And I guess you could say if you were getting stock options, you'd rather the price were lower now and higher later. So this is of less value to people getting new grants than the people who got
Depends
grants
what the
years
value
ago.
of the stock options are, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of room to move.
Yeah.
And I wonder what Amazon does. Do you get your picture taken with Jeff Bezos if you don't leave? Disco Jeff Bezos.
Right.
Yeah,
There's so
did
many
you see
different
the
incentives
pictures
out
of
there.
him on New Year's Eve? He was
Very different than Tim Cook.
he's having a good time.
He was styling.
He drove that little Honda for a long time, but I think he gave that up.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, enough
Yeah.
of this.
He's living the life.
Now,
Living his big, best pitbull life.
now the door that he uses as an executive desk is actually off the front of the Vatican.
Yeah.
Still a door. Still has his humble
Andre is not happy about that.
grassroots roots.
And
Yeah.
pitbull was the word that came to my mind as well. Rene Ritchie's living the pitbull.
Well, Telly Savalas, I thought was a bit outdated for our crowd, Leo.
Yeah, pitbull's right.
You know, I think that what's interesting is that it's not Apple's stock price is not just their performance as a company from a technology perspective, but the financial performance of dividends, stock buybacks. I mean, so a lot of the reason people are putting money into it. There's some great graphs that came out along with the $3 trillion, which show, you know, Apple has been steadily buying back, you know, the availability of the stock. So a lot of what the value for each, it doesn't, but it just makes it a good place for people to put
Buybacks
investment.
increase value because they reduce the number of shares out there.
Yeah.
So your
Well, they increase
value
the
per
val-
share goes up.
Right, but it doesn't increase. It increases more interest in doing it because each share goes up.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily by itself increase value because I mean it's just you're
The
just
value's the
moving things
value.
around.
That hasn't changed. Yeah.
Right.
And it
but-
shows
but
some
it- but it
confidence
means that
the
it-
company has.
Exactly.
Right. Investors are putting money in as like a bank, and part of the reason they can do that is because of those buybacks, because of the dividends. There's significant returns, oftentimes better returns than they would get from a bank, and so definitely better returns than they're getting from a bank. And so it's just this, by doing that. So it's a mixture of Apple doing really well and a very interesting manipulation of their stock by buying back in dividends. There's nothing wrong with it, or you know, but it's that they are making sure that investors are getting their return on a regular basis.
They call him the Wizard of Omaha, Warren Buffett, whose equity portfolio
Super
is now
happy right now.
40% Apple. He bought in a 5% Apple stake for $36 billion 3 years ago. $36 billion is now worth $160 billion. That means he
Nice he has
made
a retirement fund at long last.
he made over 120 billion over the last 3 years. Not bad. Nice work if you can get it.
No.
As my stockbroker uncle always said, Leo, you need money to make money. And that doesn't include the $775 million in annual dividends. And you're right, Alex, that's a big part of the overall profile of Apple.
That's Super Bowl snack food at that level, Leo.
It was Philip Elmer DeWitt asked me foolishly to join a Slack call or a Zoom call with his subscribers who are all Apple investors a few months ago. And I felt like the worm in the cheese because I kept saying, and I know nothing. Apple's not going anywhere. Why would you buy Apple stock? But again, this is just investor confidence. This is not, it's meaningful to Apple in the ways we've described, but it doesn't mean necessarily that Apple's going to be great tomorrow. Although the wisdom of the crowds is probably fairly accurate here.
Well, the greatest value for Apple for the stocks and investor confidence is as you said before, it's employee retention and employee acquisition. You know, when we talk about like, well, what does that what does that get us when they give back dividends, when they move their stock price up? Well, it affects a lot of employees that have stock. You know, so it's really spreading the wealth out across that group. So when they buy that stuff back, they're actually putting money into their own employee stock as kind of an indirect bonus.
And as the aforementioned Philip Elmer DeWitt mentions in his PED 30 blog, Apple's service business alone is worth $1.5 trillion. He got this from an investor note to Wedbush clients. That Tim Cook said in early 2017, our goal is to double the size of the service business over the next 4 years. And I think you can say that his report card is A+ on that one. Based on, this is Wedbush's note, based on our supply chain checks over the last few weeks, we believe demand for the iPhone 13 is outstripping supply for Apple by roughly 12 million units in the last calendar quarter.
Yeah.
Supply chain issues ease, they think, by the first quarter of this year, or first half of this year, should make a big difference in Apple's sales. So another reason to be bullish on Apple's future. Hitting $3 trillion, they write, will be another watershed moment for Apple as the company continues to prove the doubters. Is he talking about me? To prove the doubters wrong.
No, it's the law of big numbers, people, Leo. He's going square for the law of big numbers.
The renaissance of growth story playing out in Cupertino. Services billion, which we believe to be $1.5 trillion. It worth to the market. Not to Apple, but worth to the market.
That's a great testimony to long-range planning for Apple. Years ago, the question amongst everybody would be, how long can Apple continue to thrive based on this enormous hit they've got on their hands called the iPhone? Today, had they not been thinking ahead, had they not been thinking beyond their current hit product, they would have been dealing with investors saying, well, great, now we got supply chain problems. Now you've got problems in investing in problems in having all of your manufacturing in one source on top of having supply chain problems. How that's going to choke off your ability to sell this one thing that's making this the biggest wedge of profit of income from on your annual report. Now what are you going to do? Now that wedge of iPhone sales gets smaller and smaller and smaller, not because sales are necessarily tapering off, but because they're making more and more and more money off of intangible things like services. And
Isn't that a problem, though? Because isn't this what Wall Street loves? They love this idea of revenue per active user. They love this idea of quarterly results, constant income. They don't love the idea of putting that money towards long-term planning. So in a way, isn't this pushing Apple in the direction of short-term gains?
But I think that Apple's kept them thinking about short-term gains by giving them dividends and stock buybacks. Yeah. So they basically, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and then they just do what they're going to do. So they're spending the money the way they want to. The stock market's happy because they're giving the money back directly and indirectly.
And you can't knock it. The estimate is that by 2024, services will be $100 billion plus.
That's what
year.
Michael Dell asked for, right? He said, just give the money back to the shareholders. They said, okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And as Tim Cook once said to a not similar investor query, it's like, if you're having problems, if you are upset with our executive decisions, you're welcome to sell your stock. You will find lots of buyers available for it. We think that what the performance of our stock indicates that our decisions tend to work out for people in the long run.
Yeah.
So
services primarily buoyed by App Store revenue, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think
big surprise.
It's not Apple TV Plus that's really rolling in the dough.
Well, all of them. I think it's just the aggregate. Between
Apple One
TV
is a
Plus
great product, actually, isn't it? I mean, what is it, $30 a month?
It's a better product.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
It allows you to justify services that I don't think many people would spend money for individually, but as a package, when you basically, if your thought is basically that, I would actually spend an extra $1.50 a month on Apple Music. Actually, I don't like iCloud as a file storage system, but as a backup system for my phone and my iPad, I think that's good.
It's the Amazon Prime strategy, right? They're looking at what Amazon did with Amazon Prime and saying, that's a good way to make something that maybe is of tenuous value, overnight shipping, into something of, there's so many benefits. How can I say no? And it's really about psychology more than anything else.
Well, and savings. It turns out
it does save you
more for less.
If you want all of these. If you wanted all of these. But I think the psychology is, I'm really only going to pay for Apple Music, but since I can pay a little bit more and get Apple Arcade and Apple TV Plus.
It's the inverse of Prisoner's Dilemma, isn't it? You're trying to see who'll take the least for the most.
I think there's a little game theory. I really do think there's a little game theory.
Would you like to supersize that for just 75 cents more? Well, okay, sure.
Yes. Yeah, supersize. Yeah. I mean, I keep thinking I'm going to do Apple Fitness Plus any day now.
It's fun. It's fun.
It is really good.
I find the ramp up is hard. There's a lot of kind of simple stuff, and there's a lot of really hard stuff. I just wish there was more Rene level in the middle stuff. And also I'd like dedicated stretching. I'd like things that aren't high impact or yoga.
And I'd love to get a couple bucks months back for the Apple News Plus I never read. And there are better services than iCloud, obviously.
I think
they don't give you money for the ads that are in News Plus.
Yeah.
They don't do that.
They don't do that.
Apple News Plus is a big win for me just because I can't justify $30 a month for the Wall Street Journal.
It's the magazines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So it makes its money back for me.
The periodicals as opposed to just the news feed. Yeah.
I actually read it now a lot because it doesn't have the crazy algorithmic headlines. Like if I go to any other service, it is always the worst stuff that is promoted on top. And Apple's editors are actually really good at giving me information that keeps me alert but not anxious. And that's worth its weight in gold to me right now.
Yeah, it does seem like the sane feed. At least that's how it feels. I don't know whether it is or not, but it seems like, it's a sane collection of stuff that I should probably look at. I mean, my biggest complaint is that if you block something, you say, I don't want to see something, it still puts it there. Like we could put something here from there. And I'm just like, why are we doing that? Like
you a strong signal.
If I said I didn't want to get something from there, it means I don't want to see anything from there. And I don't quite understand that.
I'm glad I have both Apple News and Google News, like both on my desktop at the same time. However, this is another way where the devil's bargain really pays off because Google News is almost psychic at figuring out what it knows not just broadly what topic I'm interested in, but specifically what part of software development I'm interested in, what part of self-driving cars am I interested in legislation? Yes. Am I interested in technology? Yes. Am I interested in like promotional stuff? No. And it's really, really good at that. That's one area, but I think they balance each other really, really well for the reasons that you state. The highly curated nature of Apple News means that when I'm looking at a topic that I don't have a laser focus on, it's nice to know that do I need to grab my go bag and steal a car and head west, or do I not have to do that this morning? I don't. Great. Now I'll take a look at Google News.
I think though, if you look at all of the services in Apple services, it's hard to say that any one is the best in class. For instance, Apple Music, it's good, but there are other better services. It depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at it through the lens of artist payouts, which lately I've started to think about, Amazon Unlimited and Rhapsody and Tidal are better.
They're best integrated
Much better.
for iOS users.
They're better. They're better, but Apple Music is still paying a lot more than Spotify. And
Spotify's not so good. Yeah, this is the graph. Here's Apple
Music is absolutely
kind of
terrible.
in the middle. Yeah. YouTube's terrible. YouTube Red actually is better than Apple, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
So Apple pays a little more than half a cent per play. YouTube Red, the premium version of YouTube, pays 0.8 of a cent. 0.9 of a cent for Tidal. It's a penny per play for Napster and a little more than a penny per play for Amazon. But then if you go down from Google Play Music, which is half a cent as well, it gets a lot worse. Deezer, Amazon Prime, that's the one you're thinking of, which is 0.0.
The indies don't have any margin to play with. Like a lot of the other companies have other huge businesses and they can afford to use this as a loss leader or at least an over-the-top service where those companies need to. It's like BlackBerry and Pong back in the day. Microsoft had Windows money. Samsung had refrigerator money. Apple had Mac money. Anything goes wrong when that's your only business and that's it for you. So they're much more tightly managed.
By the way, this is for 2020 and the source is Sound Charts at soundcharts.com. They combined sources from a number of different information from a number of different sources. But my original point, regardless of that, is in any one category is Apple TV Plus not the best streaming service.
I don't think they need to be. I think what they do is they give you a good composite. I mean,
in aggregate they're better, right, than they are in individually.
It's predictable.
They're boutique
services. It's kind of like yeah. I mean, I think that you're always going to find a better cup. You can find a better cup of coffee than Starbucks, but can you find it all the time?
That's a good point.
That's the issue.
You know what? You nailed it. Apple One is the Starbucks of services.
No, I think it is. I mean,
it's on every corner.
I think they misspell your name.
It's easy. And there are things that like if you get addicted to spatial. Then there's not many other options really.
Well, others Tidal's doing Atmos. So others are doing
really expensive, and it's very limited. So Tidal, Tidal has had it for a long time, but the lists have been very limited.
Yeah,
and there was never going to go anywhere with Tidal. And what really turned the whole switch on was Apple.
Yeah.
So when Apple started pushing it down the path, and now that they're updating everything, every major record company is building, like they're not thinking about making new albums, the new major releases without a spatial mix, and that's a much different place than they were a year ago.
Alex can actually hear the recording engineer in the mix, so you have to be very careful when you provide him the file.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like when you listen to piano players and you hear them grunting as they play the song.
Well, it's not. It's funny. It's not all working. Like the interesting thing is that it's not all of the mixes are working in spatial. So there's things that they're experimenting a lot. A lot of people are experimenting.
A lot of them aren't.
And I was, I'm a big fan of Appalachian Spring by Aaron Copland, and I went back to the old one because the new one that they put into spatial, it was like everything was like too soft and too in weird places, and I was like, oh, they haven't figured this one out yet, so I'm going to go back to what I was doing before. But a lot of them are really, it's really impressive when they get it going.
I got to say, though, for all services, including Apple, I really wish they would simplify the process of hearing music and anything other than compressed normal streaming, because a service will tell you that, hey, this is available in lossless. That's fine, but what's happening at your end? Do I have to flip a switch somewhere in settings to tell this app, please don't, please make sure that
that's because everybody's got some different way of listening, right? I mean, there's
and then it's not for the last push.
It wasn't until I had an
now
extra.
That you have the hip tack and you have
that will actually tell me.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not just the quality.
It's the lights on it.
That it will tell you that here is exactly what is coming out of your computer right now. It's coming through the headphones. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I've got these new headphones. Oh, wait a minute, I'm actually listening to streaming compressed. What the hell? What did I not turn on to make that happen?
Yeah. It's too bad your ears can't tell the difference. Just you have to use the lights to know. I mean,
I can hear it in my heart. I can hear it in my heart.
So long as I can post on Instagram that I've got the white light flashing, that's fine.
Right. I think the other thing Apple did right,
you know what I'm talking about.
And this is good marketing for them, is the family plan. You share it with 5 other people, which just really encourages everybody to be on the iPhone. And of course, that's good for Apple. So.
Yeah, although I mean, like they do know that the value of the family plan will be in big gadget families. So like there's Apple Music for Android, and they built TV Plus into like it ties into televisions now have TV Plus integrated into them.
Oh yeah,
so
that's a good point.
There's less friction.
So some people,
so like if your kid is rebelling and getting an Android phone and it ties in TV, they can still be part of the family.
How dare they? Tyson TV. How dare they? Let's
Scott, your name is now Green Bubble.
Green Bubble. Hey,
deal with it.
Get in here, Green Bubble. Let's take a little break. We'll come back. There's a tiny bit of Apple news, not a huge amount. So we'll just
could go over every single case announced at CES. Leo will be here for 12 hours.
That's true. That's true. CES started this week. They're going to, just because of COVID, they're going to make it one day shorter. That'll help.
Possibly go wrong.
That'll help.
And 95% emptier.
Let's take a whole bunch of people who already bought their flights and leave them in Vegas for an extra day without anything to do. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh my gosh. Companies have been doing virtual keynotes, things like that. Apple hasn't gone to CES in years, so it doesn't really affect the Apple crowd.
It's okay. Intel was wearing a bunch of Apple watches, so that made up for it for me.
Were they? Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. You know what I miss? And the one thing that's fun about CES is going to the TV area and those massive displays. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Over-the-top displays they do.
My
$20,000 TVs for basketball players.
Yeah.
My favorite is always the China Village. You know, like you go into
that's fun too.
In the north. Usually, I think it's buried in the North Hall, and you get over there and it's just all these OEMs. They're looking for OEMs. You know, so it's just these products that haven't become products yet, and then you see, and I always find that a fun place to explore. Although
maybe next year.
Maybe.
Intel did put up a graph, Leo, where they're showing better performance per watt than M1. So I'm really, really interested to see if they actually ship that.
That must be true. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. They even mention the M1. Yeah, well, we understand now.
It's on the graph. Yeah.
It's on the graph.
I think the real challenge for a lot of these for CES and everyone else is that the companies are starting to figure out a way that they're starting to the emperor who has no clothes is starting to become very clear. Like, were we really getting an ROI out of this? Yeah. And I think that a lot of them are starting to move to other solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one small thing that tying also into like my favorite things of CES is that absolute BS one-off thing that a manufacturer will make that they have no intention of ever selling, but they just made this up so that the news crews would home in on it, or in modern times the top like YouTube text channels would get their exclusive like sweet time with this exclusive prototype of something that is not going to be released for yet, but we got our hands on it for the first time. And now you see a couple different channels that like they're getting this week, last week, they got to do videos about things that are like came right out of a flight case, and as soon as they're done with it, it has to go right back into the flight case and ship right back because it has to go right back to the next person in line. This is the one big opportunity that they can't really match by doing things virtually. We only have 3 copies of this thing, only 2 of them are barely working, and for the other one, we desperately want an engineer to be standing right by to get it working again once it freezes up on you, and you can't get that kind of attention by just simply saying, hey, we're going to give you like a virtual meeting conference in which someone will show you a pre-roll.
The thing is that when people are, I mean, this is what I do, of course, is virtual conference, like virtual events. And the thing is that the companies that are doing really well in this are, if you look at Intel, like when Intel or someone else puts a big booth up in CES, that's like $10 million, like for a week. Of stuff. You give me $10 million, I'll build you a $5 million studio that I can show you every little bit of this with lots of cameras, and we can do interviews, and I can still have money for staff, and that's over one conference as opposed to all of them. And so the thing is that then you could be just broadcasting every day. And will you have the hit that you had before? No. Will you develop a relationship with your customers? Possibly. Over a constant interaction rather than these kind of specialists. The problem with all these physical events is that they cut out 99.99999% of your addressable market. I think that's what we're seeing. A lot of manufacturers. I mean, we have some partners that they looked over last year and they realized that they had 20 times, not 20% more, but 20 times as many participants than they had before, and that makes an impact.
If you don't have to fly to Las Vegas, get a hotel room.
And so even if it's half as effective or quarter as effective, if you multiply it by 20x, it's still going to be a higher ROI. And so that's the issue that's really happening that we're seeing with these, and probably why CES is, and most of these conferences will go the same way that ones in the past had gone. I mean, this idea of these Uber conventions is probably going to be gone in 5 to 10 years. It
is a chance, though, to get to kind of ramp up the excitement and the attention. There is Scott Wilkinson tells me there's going to be a TV technology announced perhaps tonight at the Samsung event. I'm not sure who's going to announce it. That is going to be a breakthrough. That's something we haven't heard about before. So
sure, but you could do that online. I mean,
you could do it online, and Samsung is streaming it online, but they are at the Venetian Ballroom. So I think there's something about everybody knows, okay, this is CES week. There's some excitement and kind of buzz generated just by the nature of that. That might be.
They announced an NFC TV yesterday, Leo. So there's nowhere to go for Samsung but up.
What did they announce?
An NFT television.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I don't understand. How do you get a TV, or you just get the idea of a TV?
I think it's a TV that lets you spend inordinate amounts of money on NFTs.
Oh, great! Just what I need. Just what I need. This is what I'm going to buy.
You can order.
This is what I want from Scooter X.
Display NFTs.
Apple commemorates a year of M1 Max with a special M1 T-shirt. How do I get that? That's what I'd like to. Like to know.
You got to work for Apple last year.
It's only for the engineers, huh? For the M1
or look
team.
at
eBay. I don't know if these will be sold. Actually, I'm gonna hold out for the M2 T-shirt, and then
I can't usually fit into an M1, especially during winter, spring or summer. Maybe I usually got an M2 and then count on it on shrinking.
Well, the M2's got a smaller footprint, so you might actually want to go for an M1 Max T-shirt.
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing.
It's a nice looking T-shirt. That'd be a good thing to have in your collection. All right, let's take a little time out. Come back with more with the gang. It's good to see you all again in 2022. Andy Ihnatko, Rene, Ritchie, Alex, Lindsay.
So hopeful.
Yes, a brand new year. We cleaned up all the Santa vomit from the studio's floors, and Burke came in and fixed it after his amazing decoration. 30-second fire hose of Santa Claus. Looks nice. Although they tried to trick me. Was that on purpose? There was one little Christmas ornament hanging under Andy Ihnatko. Just a little ball right there.
Because Orthodox Christmas hasn't passed.
That's right. Maybe that's what it is. When is Orthodox Christmas? It's coming, right?
Late this week, early next.
You get a little extra.
I do have to check.
A little something extra. Yes. Yeah, in your stocking.
Pierogies and sausages for everyone.
Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. Love these guys. Really do. You're going to see a lot of ads. I mean, it's already happened for, diamond hands, ride the stonk, ride up and all of that stuff. And, that's fun. Day trading can be fun, but it is no way to build your wealth. Honestly, it really isn't. Do it for fun. It's like going to Vegas, expecting, I'm going to make my fortune here on the roulette wheel. No. If you want to build your savings, you want to build wealth, Wealthfront makes it easy to invest, easy to grow your savings with a diversified, that's an important word, underline that, diversified portfolio that balances your other riskier bets. Easy to do. You can start investing in no time with Wealthfront's classic portfolio. They handle it all for you. Or you can make it your own with things that you care about, socially responsible funds. If you're a big believer in technology or crypto, they've got technology funds, crypto trusts. There actually are hundreds of investments, and you can see when you go to the Wealthfront page how you can select, you can design your own portfolio. But Wealthfront was designed by financial experts to take those ideas and turn them into great investments without the hassle of doing everything yourself, of watching the stock market every day go up and down. That's terrible on your digestion. And they do things you really wouldn't want to do. Do you want to spend hundreds of hours trying to lower your tax bill with tax loss harvesting? Do you even know how? Wealthfront does. Are you aware that you need to rebalance your portfolio when you make gains in one sector? You've got to balance it out in the other sector. Do you know that? Well, you don't have to even worry about rebalancing. They do it for you automatically. Wealthfront's the right way to go. $28 billion in assets now. They're helping 500,000 people build their wealth. It takes $500 to get started. You'll grow your wealth the easy way. Let Wealthfront do the work for you. It's one of those set it and forget it things. The best part of this, their product is so simple, so powerful, but beloved. 4.9 out of 5 stars in the Apple App Store. I don't want to talk about returns. I don't want to talk about fees and all that stuff. I want you to go to the website and find out for yourself. Wealthfront.com/MacBreak. Start building your wealth. And by the way, yes, $500 to get started, but put in as much as you can because your first $5,000 will be managed free, no charge, forever, for life. Wealthfront.com/MacBreak. WEALTHFRONT. Wealthfront.com/MacBreak. Start building your wealth. That's really what it's all about. That's really what it's all about. Go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. Get started today. All right. Is there any Apple news? There are lots of Apple rumors. Shall we go to the Gurman?
The Gurman?
Let's go to the Gurman.
The Gurman.
The holiday
Gurman.
The holiday Gurman.
Be a noise for. We're opening the Gurman.
Open the Gurman. Unfortunately, he hides.
Can I just?
Yes.
So he puts out these reports, and we've talked about before how you need to read sources familiar with the matter. So this time he put out this report, and he's like, I expect we'll see all the Macs by WWDC, meaning, at least to my read, Apple will do what they usually do with Mac Pros, and that is show them off.
Yeah.
But everyone immediately, Apple's going to finish the rollout by there was 18 articles before I could blink.
Yeah.
They were completely wrong. And he clarified it later, but wow, do they fire fast?
Yeah. Yeah, because they like that link bait headline, which is Apple will complete the transition by June. That's a real link bait headline. There is no evidence that that's going to happen, is what you're saying.
There's no way. Yeah, that's true.
No way. But I mean, they could announce a Mac Pro, probably would at WWDC.
But they've done that twice before. Yeah. December 31st, right when Alex wants it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what does Mark Gurman say? He expects a smaller Mac Pro with up to, this is making my mouth water, I want this t-shirt, 40 CPU cores and 128 graphics cores, a new Mac Mini, we've been wanting that, a new large-screened iMac Pro, the biggest MacBook Air redesign in product history. This is what I've been holding out for a little bit. This is going to be perhaps an M2, an updated entry-level MacBook Pro, new iPad Pro with wireless charging. There's not much you could do with the iPad Pro at this point, given that you put the M1 in it last year.
M2 and magnetic inductive charging, I think, are the big ones for this
M2
year.
this year, you think?
For the iPad Pro, yeah. I mean, like it depends on timing. Anything that comes the first half of the year, I think has to be on M2 because the process ramp up is going to be likely 4 or 3 nanometers for M3 and A16. And I don't think that'll be ready to ship before the end of the year. So anything we see in the beginning of the year will be M1, M2 based because the M2, the N5P process that they've used for A15 is already good and done.
Yeah.
They can ship that.
So the M2 is based on the A15 as the M1 was based on the A14. But you put more cores in, you put more GPUs, you do other things with it. You put
it's more efficient, which is perfect for a MacBook Air. Like the core, everything runs cooler. It has good performance, but cooler performance, which is exactly what you want.
So how fast? In other words, I bought an M1 Pro and a MacBook, 14-inch MacBook Pro. Is this new MacBook Air going to be faster than that? Because that would be depressing.
So it's the same thing because like when Apple shipped the A12Z iPad Pro, it was 6 months after the A13 iPhone. And so the A13 iPhone had faster single core performance than the iPad Pro, but that's not what people buy an iPad Pro for. That's things that control like web rendering and app responsiveness. And so we know from A15 that it'll be 10% faster for
single core
performance cores, 30% faster for efficiency cores. The graphics cores are way better, but they also throttle more because they made them, I think, too good this time.
Yeah.
So, but it should net out to like single core will be better, but multi-core will still be obliterated by any of them, the Pro or Mac.
I apologize because I am obsessed with Mac. And obviously, the vast majority of the world cares about iPhone. So I should mention there'll also be...
They'll also, by the way,
there'll be an iPhone SE in the first half, according to Gurman, 5G, and a revamped iPhone 14 4 with a hole punch in the fall.
The SE is going to be interesting because the battery life on the current SE is not terrific. And that's just with an A13 and an LTE modem. So you put an A15 in there and Qualcomm's 5G modems are notoriously thirsty. And if it really is the exact same design, nothing else changed, I'm going to be really curious how they net out the battery life.
Is that a problem with just because of the size? They just can't put in a big battery.
Yeah. The bigger processors need bigger batteries just because of the draw.
Also in the works, according to Gurman, 3 new Apple Watches, a new SE, a Series 8, and a rugged version aimed at extreme sports enthusiasts. We've been seeing that rumor for a while.
Yeah.
And the watches come out.
I have a rugged version. You can see the rugged version.
Yeah, you ruggedized it. That's good.
I bought it. Just dipped it in Plastidip.
Yeah,
Truck bed liner. Works great.
Turns out for $26, I can get a rugged version of the Apple.
Yeah.
Also, if you hit Alex's watch, it turns into Captain America's shield. That's a seldom known.
That is still the vulnerability.
Don't talk about that on the show.
That is just still the vulnerability, both of the phones and the watches, is this bit of glass here, or sapphire, or whatever it is, that is just going to, if you knock it, it cracks. So
yeah, that's a missing link in the lineup because they're asking people to be more active. They're actually encouraging people to be more active. If they just basically said, "Hey Casio, make us a G-Shock enclosure for the Apple Watch," oh my God, would that be a wonderful product?
Well, that's kind of what you got there, Alex.
That's what I have.
It's a G-Shock.
It's basically
Apple Watch.
I mean, it reminds me when I look at it, it looks exactly like a G-Shock.
Yeah.
That I used to own.
Yeah.
Except that it's there, and I did it because I just was like, I bought a new one, and then I also learned that constant app update means your watch will not work. There's a little setting there that I finally had to search through. Like I got the new one. It was like I went from the 4 to the 7 or whatever, and I wanted to protect it. I was like, I'm spending new money on it. The 4 looks like it went through a war because it did. And so the new one, I was like, I'm going to protect it. I'm going to put a thing on it, and it lasts like 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day. It's like and that includes the night when it's just not doing anything. And I realized that once I turn it's the app update that's in the watch. Just annihilates it, and so
Gurman's through thread was, even though 2021 was the most successful year in Apple's history, their product lineup, while good, was not a smash hit of introductions, and that next year, or this year, I guess now, will be. Is that a
Gruber begged his premise very quickly on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I can agree with that.
I think that Apple has a lot of growth in front of them. I mean, I think that that's the case. I mean, I think that I don't know whether.
That's fair.
They're going to release it, but there's, and the thing is it's really about a matter of how many. Apple's at a point now where it's really just how many products can they focus on, and focus is the real problem for them, is to figure out how many things can they do, because there's a lot of things that people would buy if they made them. The home kit is not been super successful in the sense that most of us just wish Apple would build those things. like most of us would just be like, that none of them really work, and we're all pretty clear that they would really work if Apple just built it, as opposed to trying to get manufacturers who want to do many, many different platforms and many, they want to support a whole bunch of things. There's a whole bunch of Apple users that don't care about all Zigbee or any of the other stuff. We're just like, we just wanted to do the thing with our thing really well, and when you do that, we would just buy it. But no one wants to. The manufacturers don't want to do that. They want to make it available to everyone. And I think that there's some point where Apple will turn on those manufacturers. I mean, I'm just saying, I think that there's a point where Apple will give up and just start making locks and other things like that. And it'll just toast them all, because at some point because there's a lot of people that would just buy what Apple made.
It's still branded as HomeKit, though, which is such a painful branding from Apple. Right.
It's just a painful. It's a whole painful platform.
Apple's not
all
perfect.
Of the home automation.
Apple's not perfect. I mean, the AirPods are pretty crappy too. But.
Well, they also have a very small focus. Like they just don't have the ability. They don't have the way the company is structured is to maintain startup emotions inside a big company. And there's not enough bandwidth. Like they can barely push out 3 Macs.
I'd be very happy if they continue to focus on the iPhone and these M1s, M2s. Those, and that, by the way, that's what Gruber's whole point is modest. What's modest about releasing, look at the products they put out last year. I mean, it was a far from modest year. Again,
and the thing that he does lean towards, and we don't know whether it'll be this year or next year or the year after, but, Apple is building, a massive head of steam for AR.
The Holy Grail, I'll give you his paragraph for that. The Holy Grail for 2022, of course, will be if Apple announces its first virtual reality headset with some AR featured, codename N301. That rolls off the tongue. And its accompanying ROS, codenamed Oak. Real-time operating system?
Did they steal away from Sony to come up with these product names?
Reality operating system.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Ooh, that sounds good. But the timeline for that product has slipped before Apple originally targeted 2020, then WWDC 2021, then WWDC
do you remember? Do you remember when Joanna asked Craig about that during your interview, and she's like, "How's the software going for the mixed reality headset?" He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah,
right.
It was just one of the best moments of 2021.
They don't pre-announce, so all of this buzz is caused by people like Gurman.
Well, but I think that the other thing is that when you look at the trajectory of the rollout, they haven't been ready to roll it out, and it has nothing to do with the hardware. They haven't put all the pieces in place to build the ecosystem around the hardware. So I don't know if they're really behind. Like I know that he says that. I'm not clear that they are. I think that if you look at what they're doing as far as the rollout goes with object capture, with what we think will be eventually, moving USDZ across the entire platform, those things all want to happen before the hardware comes out, because it's going to create the ecosystem that makes the hardware work better. This is the problem that Google had. Google was 5 years ahead, 6 years ahead, something like that, but they didn't have an ecosystem to support the platform itself. And Apple has been slowly putting all the pieces together, but those pieces haven't been, and they feel like they've been going at a very, measured pace, not like they're behind or ahead, but just like, this is the next thing I would give you. Once you know how to do this, once we give you LiDAR, the next thing I'm going to give you is object capture. The next thing I'm going to do is let you take that object capture and put it into Keynote and Pages. The next thing I'm going to do, those things have to happen before you put out a piece of hardware. If you're not in a rush, if you're not trying to make money, or you're not trying to beat anybody, you're just trying to win, with brutal efficiency, you would do it, just slowly plot all these pieces out, because Keynote and Pages will create a massive demand for 3D models, which will then set up for the AR.
Yeah. But I feel like there's a possibility that we're all being a little bit myopic here, that we're thinking that the big thing that we hopefully will see next is going to be some sort of a mixed reality headset or mixed reality goggles that will deliver on the promise of object capture, of, again, interactive 3D models, things that really, really manipulate our environment around us. I'm starting to become closer to the more affectionate with the idea that the first thing that they roll out will be something that's more similar to the Apple Watch, where it's not there to overlay things into your field of vision. It's not there to show you Krakatoa exploding on your desktop. It's there so that while you're taking your walk, while you're working out, while you're doing whatever, you see a notification appear in the upper left corner of your vision, similar to what an Apple Watch would deliver. Just simply saying, by the way, if you want to notice this, there's something here for you to take a look at. If you want to ignore it completely, by all means, ignore it completely. Or asking it a question and getting a quick answer. Something like, imagine Google Glass, but with 2021 technology and also designed by Apple. That I think that would be more.
Let me read you a little blog comment on Philip Elmer DeWitt's PED30.com from Thomas Williams, who I think encapsulates our dreams and hopes. We'll see if it's true. He says,
"What are those?"
Our hopes and
I used
dreams.
to have those in 2019.
Yes, the real secret sauce, he writes, and driver, literally and figuratively, for Apple moving forward is their silicon paired with 5G networks. Investors need not fully comprehend 10 teraflops of performance, a 16-core neural engine, a secure enclave, multiple media engines supporting ProRes media encoding, decoding, and unified memory architecture. All they need to know now is the competition may never really catch up. These system-on-a-chip features translate to incredible amateur pro video performance, but also workable voice control over devices that formerly required a keyboard. Augmented reality glass in my spectacles is one thing. Smart AR glass in my windshield is game-changing. He imagines a vision of a future with AR glass paired with high-res cameras, IR and LiDAR sensors, which can change night driving, AR-assisted manufacturing and repair. I mean, he's basically saying...
I think it's way simpler than that. Like Tim Cook is willing to talk about AR, VR, AI, and automation because, again, they're not products to him. They're technologies. Like talking about LCD or OLED are technologies. And I think it's going to be a very simple rollout, the way we used to see, like the original iMac had a CRT display, but then it went to LCD, and you couldn't make an iPhone unless you had an LCD. There was no CRT iPhone. So that technology enabled new products, and these technologies will enable new products. But at first, they're going to be extensions of existing products. So the one that's going to ship first, like my best understanding, is something like an Apple TV for your head. Because the AR stuff is harder. So it's going to have its own processor in it. It's going to go all around your head, and it's going to focus on immersive experiences like the Apple TV does, the fitness, the television, the gaming, the education. And then a couple of years later is going to be what Andy was talking about, the Apple Watch, original Apple Watch style device that has to fit into glasses. So it's going to be way more restricted. It's going to lean on the phone a lot in the beginning. And its job is going to be is to show you notifications and glanceable information without you even having to turn your wrist. So it's a level of convenience increase. And then over time, those technologies will get built into all sorts of products the way that LCDs did and eventually OLEDs did. And then Apple just rolls out the next decade.
I think if Apple wasn't going to put objects in front of us, they wouldn't be doing these little things around their events that are showing objects that they're putting in there. I mean, they tend to be pretty methodical about those things. And so I think that they're definitely planning. And I do think that immersive is a lot easier than AR in a lot of ways. AR is easier to do on the phone. Immersive is easier to do as a headset because you have more room to put electronics and so on and so forth. So I do agree with Rene that I think that we'll see something probably immersive as we go through it. But I do think it's going to be a pretty big game changer when it happens. And of course, like everything else, it'll start small, like the watch and like everything. But I think that the integration of because Apple has a different setup where they have, Motion and Final Cut are great video apps, but they're really obviously there's 3D engines and all kinds of stuff being put into them. That's for the AR and VR, not for a straight video distribution. And so they have those tools.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that the fact that Apple is putting so much investment in creation of 3D objects, it's obvious that that's where they're going. But my stumbling block has always been when you're talking about mixed reality headsets or mixed reality goggles, I keep thinking of all the electric cars that they tried to build before lithium batteries came along. It's fine. You can have these lead acid batteries in the trunk. It will power the car for a certain amount of time, but it's simply not going to be the sort of thing. It's not going to not going to be the technology that will enable this thing that we're kind of dreaming about, and took these high density batteries to give us cars that are actually function like cars, have the range of cars, have the styling of cars. And I think that we're running into the same sort of technological limitation with mixed reality goggles, where how do we get a display technology that will give you a field of vision that most people that will deliver the effect that you want, while also being compact enough and power non-hungry enough to give you a wearable piece of kit that you would actually want to wear when you're not being given a virtual walkthrough of what your new kitchen remodel is.
Well, but maybe
like.
we're focusing. The glasses are a red herring. Maybe I mean, this idea of a windshield sounds very intriguing. A heads-up windshield. Not that. I mean, I think you wouldn't invest in a future where people are still driving their own cars.
Right. That's the thing. I think that if you're throwing the ball to where the receiver is going to be, as opposed to where it is right now, you're not going to build. I mean, I think that there's a moment for the next 3 to 5 years where we're still building like a high tech thinking forward
future.
The long-term future is that cars aren't going to have any windshields.
So what else would you put heads up in instead of wearing these things?
Well, the thing is that we're already seeing a lot of these with the stuff that we're already doing and building with USDZ is stuff that I can just send you a USDZ. And I talked about it earlier. If you go to something like clarity.io, you can download a USDZ that we built. That I have to be honest,
I feel like this is gimmicky. I don't. It doesn't. Every demo I've seen is like you go to a restaurant and the menu shows you the three. It's just not to me. It doesn't speak to me as something I need. So,
but the thing is
not
that
a believer yet.
What's happening right now and what we're figuring out right now is how to use the LiDAR that we have, and we don't have this working yet, but using the LiDAR we have to attach it. So like I have an object and I want to see what that looks like. And that's what a lot of people are working on is I have an object that I want to figure out, does this fit here? And I can just pop it out and look at it. And does it fit here? What does it look like when I rotate it around? Those are things that are pretty utilitarian. And I will say that we've worked with some folks that as soon as the sales folks opened it up on their iPad, they wanted every object that their company owns that makes in this format, because now they can sit there and talk to their clients with it. And those are not whiz bang things. This is just, it's a lot easier than carrying a case full of objects around. And they can show it and talk about it and highlight it and so on and so forth. And so I think that those are going to be really interesting, pieces of that puzzle. And so and again, you can make things, make little things very, very big and walk around them and study them. And I think from an education and sales perspective, that kind of stuff is just getting started. And a lot of it has been creating the geometry that go into that. Even now is pretty hard. So the object capture is getting better, but that's what killed us when we were doing stuff for Google was not for Google, but for the Google, for the phones.
Tango.
The Tango. The problem we had with Tango was getting the geometry in. We had to use Unity at the time to do that. And so there was like a huge lift. What we're getting to now is you can kind of wave your phone at something and have a 3D model. And that's a big deal. And it's not done yet. But as that matures and that anybody can grab onto anything and throw it into their Keynote document or send it to somebody like, this is what it's going to look like. I think
you live in a kind of specialized world where that's valuable. I don't think that the normal people are saying, gosh, I wish I could put a 3D object in my Keynote document. I think that this is a specialty thing. I don't see
they wouldn't see it, though. That's like infrastructure. All they'll see is they'll have their headset or glasses on. They'll go to a virtual thing. They'll press it, and then they'll have like a model of the dress they want or the lamp they want or something.
I'm getting a little John C. Dvorak-y in my old age, but I don't buy it.
What happens though is that when it comes to sales, what happens for sales guys that are sales folks that are doing this is they get their clock cleaned by somebody who has a superior technology, and then they want to know how to do that. And
so it's great for sales. It doesn't that doesn't really sell me particularly. That's depressing.
Okay.
Good, great. A car salesman is going to. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. These are not things that your average person who's using.
Memoji Leo needs a Lamborghini.
Yeah,
come on. Memoji Leo needs a Lamborghini.
Well, but it's where things start and then they become normalized, And so the thing is that I do think that the tools are still a little rudimentary, but it's a real problem when you go. Number one, when you go and decide what shelving you want in IKEA. knowing where it actually is, whether it'll fit where you think you're going to put it or how you're going to do it is a thing, and everyone's measuring all this stuff, and you can get to a point where you just kind of go like this, and now I know. And then the second thing is really how to build it is what you need. is how to do that. That's
I don't see it changing the world, but you know what? I'm willing to be wrong. What's your time frame? 5 years, 10 years?
For what?
For any of this?
Well,
we've been talking about this. I mean, IKEA's had an app on my phone
5 years for the glasses?
A long time. Glasses
for the glasses?
are 5 years out. I think
the immersive is probably less than 18 months.
Yeah.
So I think the immersive. I think that the AR is probably 3 to 5.
Yeah.
It's probably. But again, I think the keynote pages thing is probably this year. It's probably this year or next spring.
Microsoft tried this about 3 years ago, and nobody wanted it, and they dropped it. They had a 3D paint. They had
AR Clippy. Can you imagine?
I feel
HoloLens
like
has been
this
HoloLens
is a
has been pretty successful for
people are
Microsoft.
excited about that isn't going to change the world. HoloLens has been but again,
really successful.
Again, in a narrow niche, not in the mainstream
that's how you
market.
start. Well, that's how you start.
Okay. All right.
So they're making a lot of money with that headset. It's not, they're doing it.
It's all Minecraft,
that stuff
Leo.
is
Minecraft's going to drive
Minecraft.
this completely.
It is stunning. Like the stuff when you put on a HoloLens at a work site and you can see where everything's supposed to be, you realize that there's some future there that you're going to get. This is going to become normal. And there's a lot of things. When people got cars, they were really expensive and quirky and didn't work. Like in 1890, they were like, that's weird. Like no one's going to use that. My horse goes a lot faster in a lot of other places than that.
I think it's appropriate for Apple to say, well, we're going to predict what's going to happen in 10 years, and we're going to aim for that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Sure. And I don't want to suggest that it's going to happen, to be honest.
That Georgia Dow is normal by any stretch of the imagination. But when I asked her what she was doing on New Year's Eve, they had 4 VR helmets on the entire family, and they were hunting zombies. So make of that what you want.
I mean, my kids. Yeah. No, I will say. We're probably going to say the same thing, but my kids casually use Quest all the time. Like they're just kind of like they play for half an hour here and there.
Yeah. No, that's why whenever my skepticism is all about mixed reality, there are things that Apple, I think, could already have done something like an Oculus, and it is a wonderful thing. Even when I was first playing with Google Cardboard, the standard where you just drop a phone inside a holder, and just the ability to watch movies inside a virtual theater. The first time I had like 233 to 1 like super widescreen like VistaVision movies, and being in a virtual theater where, as the director intended, I can't see the entire thing on one like 60-inch screen. I have to keep turning my head to watch to see things going on there. That was an amazing thing. And now that you've got the 3D immersive games, that's also an amazing thing. Apple could have. The technology for that obviously existed for a while. Apple could have gotten in on it very, very early. I think that's easily could be the very next thing they do. That's the question: is what spin are they going to put on it that will make it as enticing as a $350 headset that, for God's sakes, a company owned by Facebook is making a success out of?
Yeah.
Well, I think that resolution is a big piece of it, and that requires a lot of processing power. So 6 to 8K per eye is going to be a big deal if they're able to actually do that.
That's a good question, Alec. Did you see the rumor today? Like Apple's going to have 3 displays in it: 2 micro LED OLED and 1 AMOLED. And I can't for the life of me figure out why you'd want 3 displays, especially that mix of displays.
Yeah, the micro OLED will be, I guess, for the eyes, and then I don't know, the AMOLED panel maybe is on the outside. Maybe it's not on the inside.
Is it a touch bar, Leo? Don't make it a touch bar.
No, yeah, we need a touch bar. This comes from a.
That's where it went.
Yeah. This comes from a research report from Ross Young.
It's been fairly accurate over the last while.
Yeah, I don't get what that third one would be, but
Yeah. See, but that's one of many questions that are still on my mind, at least, that you can absolutely point out all of the technological limitations of the latest Oculus. However, just as Georgia was saying, it's inexpensive enough that the whole family can have them and play them together. Will Apple say that, no, we're giving you a $2,000 headset that is so much better than this in every way? Now, of course, instead of having 4 of them, you might know someone who will let you borrow it for 15 minutes while you're at their house. But man, oh man, during those 15 minutes that you're at their person's house and borrowing their Apple display, oh my God, are you going to be enjoying it?
It's the first iPhone. It's the one they're going to use to pay it down with, and then the second one hopefully will be way cheaper.
I mean,
if all I have to do is call it the developer edition, and I'm not even kidding here. All they have to do is say this is it's $2,000, it's $3,000. It's much better components we will ever put in a consumer version of the device. But we realize that we're going to need a lead time for people to understand and develop the apps and the games they want, and that will get people saying, you know what, I'm not a developer, but I will buy one anyway. Yeah.
And they'll sell as many as they can make. Like at $2,000 or $3,000, they'll sell as many as they can make. Like that's what happened to Google. $1,500 each for Google Glass or whatever, and those are not what this is.
It was a way you had to apply. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's because it was the very first. I don't think if Google released something like that again today, that anybody would buy it. But that's just me.
Because subsidizing their headsets to the extreme.
Honestly, it's always hard. When the Mask came out, people said, "Oh, that's." Remember, Dvorak said, "Oh,
Xerox." Remember,
nobody
Xerox?
ever want that. So it's always hard to know what a technology down the road is going to transform things.
Yeah.
And it's hard for Apple just as much as it's hard for us. I'll grant you this is something that's coming. I've been a very big proponent of AR. I'm starting to doubt it a little bit more now. VR, I think, had a lot of promise, and it's pretty clearly limited to people like George Dow.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that when Apple,
it's a polite way of saying zombie hunters.
when Apple was going to release a phone, people were like, "Well, that's not going to work." I mean,
and I grant you.
When they used to watch,
it's hard
they were
to
like,
know.
"Well, that's not going to work."
It's hard to know. So
they haven't missed very often.
Yeah.
And they've never missed where they put
they've missed plenty.
I mean, this is.
Oh, wait a minute now. Come on. Apple's released quite a few products that
iPod Hi-Fi
have failed. It
my
doesn't mean an automatic hit because Apple thought it up.
No, but I think that most of those have been what I would consider side projects. This is a pretty big.
Again, throwing money at it doesn't mean people want it. You got to convince people that they want it.
It's not throwing money at it. It's setting up the ecosystem around it because it's. And again, I've had the opportunity to be in some version of VR, AR for 20 years. So for me, a lot of this is
That's
really
telling,
slow,
Alex.
And but I can say that there are things that we haven't been able to technologically do because of processing power. That when you put it on, when I've got a huge,
my first VR experience was at SIGGRAPH in 1992. Remember flying the pterodactyl with a giant thing that had a giant electrical connection to a $1 million computer, and it was very cool. It has not. Somehow, the technology's improved, but the usefulness has not.
It's big, but I think that one of the big things that stopped it, though, has been mostly miniaturizing the technology so that you have enough RAM, you have enough CPU power, you have enough, optics. Those have been huge issues in those areas where when you see it at its native state, at what it's capable of, you're like, oh, I would do this all the time. When you see the one that goes out as a consumer, you're like, like it's okay, And so there are different versions of these that when you see them, you're like, oh, if we can do that for the public, it would be, people would use it all the time. And I think that I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I think that there's I think Apple's building an enormous push for it in a way that, again, I've been working in this industry for 20 years. I've never seen any company have so much energy and so much effort. So if they screw it up, if you're right, and they don't get this right, wow, that's going to be a big whiff. But I've never seen anybody I've never seen any company put this much money and this much effort into a rollout and this much time into a rollout publicly ever. Like it is an incredible
history
lift.
of innovation generally does not lie with the big incumbents. It lies with the little guys who come up with something that can disintermediate
too
the
hard.
big guys.
But
maybe this is too much technology to do that. Let's go on to other rumors. AirPod Pro 2, according to, say his name, Guoming, right? Something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
But you have a better Chinese accent than I do, Leo. Well,
Ming-Chi Kuo, as he's known in the U.S., his analyst note says the second generation AirPods Pro will feature support for lossless audio. In my mind, Bluetooth and lossless audio, it's meaningless, and a charging case that can emit a sound for location tracking purposes. Well, we do need that. This is in his investor note. I think Bluetooth is so crappy that you'd have to come up with something better than Bluetooth if you wanted to care about lossless
Which will make
audio.
Nilay Patel's head explode, right? And I don't know if that's a bug or a feature to Apple at this point.
Right. I mean, I think that the question is whether Apple's going to continue to. I mean, they'll probably continue to support Bluetooth if you want a Bluetooth headset, but I think this is probably going to be a headphone that steps away from
it'll superset
a Bluetooth solution.
Yeah, or something maybe that's if you could improve AAC compression to the point where you could transmit it over Bluetooth. Maybe.
I think they're going to move. I think they're going to move past Bluetooth.
I think they have to. I think the compression in
That's
Bluetooth
what their VP said,
completely destroys. Lossless is meaningless when you have to then compress it. That becomes lossy. So I don't understand what the plan is. Yeah, what was that? That was the article. Let me see if I can find
where
that.
he just said like they're trying to get everything they can out of Bluetooth, and there's ways of getting more out of Bluetooth. There's ways to coax it, to cheat it, but eventually that's all they can get. So
from whathifi.com.
He said eventually you need more bandwidth. I'm going to stop there.
Is Bluetooth holding back Apple's AirPods? We asked the man who made them, Gary Geeves.
Yeah.
He is according to this article, fabulously enthusiastic VP of acoustics at Apple.
He's terrific. He's legit terrific.
Yeah.
He's so excited.
Yeah. I love the enthusiasm. I think that's great. But yeah, he also says Bluetooth is part of the problem, you know. And maybe you don't need to do lossless in Bluetooth. I mean, maybe lossless isn't the end game there anyway.
Maybe you don't need Bluetooth. I really think that what they're going to do is they're going to have something other than Bluetooth.
Yeah.
But you would need something to take the place of Bluetooth. You need something that is ubiquitous, that produces quality audio with
Wi-Fi, maybe Wi-Fi.
Well, no, but you could superset it. Like it's. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. All I'm saying is that the story of if there's one thing that I've constantly been disappointed about in Apple is that they consistently show how good they are at producing software, hardware, stacks, whatever, when they control every single element of the process. When they have to create something that has to work with what if someone wants to buy a piece of hardware that isn't manufactured by Apple? Will it work successfully with that? Apple is like, well, why would you when we have our own standard iPods? Yes. Why would you when we have our own messaging system? And I'm not suggesting that makes them a failure as a company. I'm saying that it's like a pitcher who has great control, great speed, but can't do a breaking ball, can't throw a curveball.
I know Apple doesn't like
that's why I would not. That's why I would not want them to do something that make phones that do not work with any wireless headphones but their own.
I know Apple doesn't like aptX, but aptX is lossless. It's out there. It's Qualcomm. That's the reason Apple doesn't like it.
But I think that
they have
the
access to. They have licensed that. But the thing. So I'll just get this quickly. But my guess is that it's going to work very similar to Thunderbolt, and that is if you have the appropriate Apple headphones, it will work at twice
compatible.
The bandwidth. Yeah. But then if you don't, it'll work at like USB-C version.
Here's the money quote from Geeves. Obviously, he says, the wireless technology is critical for content delivery that you talk about, but also things like the amount of latency you get when you move your head. And if that's too long between moving your head and the sound changing or remaining static, it'll make you feel quite ill. So we have to concentrate very hard on squeezing the most we can out of the Bluetooth technology. There's a number of tricks we can play to maximize or get around some of the limits of Bluetooth, but it's fair to say we would like more bandwidth. And I'll stop right there. We would like more bandwidth. You know, obviously, he can't say what he's doing, but obviously he's thinking about it.
I think you could build AirPods that will work with lots of things via Bluetooth if you have them, phones that will work with Bluetooth headsets if that's what you're using, but another pipeline that Apple is now going. I think Apple's going to put another
just their
pipeline
own wireless technology.
It's not that they're going to be incompatible, but when the two of them are together, it's going to be high bandwidth between them and a higher quality, and it's going to just So I don't think it's going to get rid of Bluetooth, but I think that they're going to go. Well, that's the best we can do there. You'll get but if you want lossless, this headset connected with that phone is going to give you a lossless experience.
I may be wrong, but that seems like something doable since it's already been done.
I think it's very doable.
It'll be like the new version of Apple Talk or something, whatever they branded it as.
Yeah. And if we're going to do AirPod Pro 2 this year, maybe that's the next thing we're going to see. And requires iPhone, right? Or maybe requires a newer iPhone. I don't know.
Yeah, and they could make that standard. They could make that standard a something that other people could build headphones for. It doesn't mean that they have to, but the point is that there'll be a different standard other than Bluetooth, and that you'll have to.
Meanwhile, I'm with Andy, and I'm plugging in my wired headphones.
Do they have vacuum tubes though, Leo?
I think about it.
Because I can tell you're a real enthusiast if you have vacuum tubes.
I think the move to Bluetooth headphones and the loss of the headphone jack, I guess I'm sounding like an old guy, aren't I?
I have wired headphones.
Hardline anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have wired headphones in my bag all the time if I leave the house, and I have wired headphones laying around, and I still listen to them occasionally, but on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, the same reason people use those white AirPods, because they don't.
Well, I won't use those. I will say that after
they
you
don't
have the
care
pros,
that much about audio.
After you have the pros, you go back. I put the old ones in. I'm like, how did I ever do this? Like, how was this ever okay? Yeah. Like it was. Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. Never underestimate the appetite of the buying public for crappy solutions.
But there's also we have to move forward in some ways. And a lot of the standards bodies are really good for making sure things are consistent, but they're really bad for just what USPC has done recently.
Yeah, I don't mind Apple going its own way. I have no problem with that. That's fine. They can invent an Apple hi-fi wireless.
Well, just push everybody forward. Bluetooth, how long has it been, Leo? We've been stuck with crappy Bluetooth for a decade.
The thing is, the solution, this problem was solved many, many years ago with wired headphones. So
yes,
I don't care what Apple does with wireless if it's proprietary, because we already solved this with wired headphones. And I don't know. I guess you guys think that the convenience of not having a wire makes up for the lousy sound quality.
Well, it'll be part of AR,
static, all the other stuff. Yeah,
I think that my thing is that. Okay. Go ahead. I'll quickly. My thing is not the sound quality. It's just the fact that a copper wire that electrons propagate towards, that always works. I know, even it doesn't matter what kind of wireless headphones I've ever used, even Apple ones. There are times where, okay, so I guess I don't get to hear out of my left earbud because I've got my phone in the wrong pocket for that. So I've got to move my phone into a better pocket for that.
But wires don't work with watches.
Yeah.
Yeah, who cares?
I admit, I bring out my AirPod Pro Maxes.
My phone doesn't wear with the watches either. So there you go.
I admit, when I want to do a Zoom call or a conference call, I bring out my AirPod Pro Maxes. I have to justify the ridiculous $550.
And you can walk around, Leo. You can pace.
And I look stupid because I don't know why. I think I was self-loathing. I bought pink ones, but I have to admit that's the best experience for a Zoom call. But I'm not looking for audio fidelity on a Zoom call. So
yeah, I mean, I think that I don't listen to enough music constantly on my phone. I mean, 90%. I mean, I do listen to a lot of music on it, but I mostly am on calls.
Yeah,
so for me, the wireless and the convenience.
Apple has created the music as wallpaper generation, and they don't care about music or fidelity, and that's the norm at this point. And so it's ironic that Apple's pushing lossless and spatial to that audience.
I think the spatial is way more important than lossless. To me,
I agree.
I can hear the spatial a lot more than I can hear lossless.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm too old.
And even that's controversial. There's so many people, so many audiophiles that will say, "Oh, but this was not the intention of the person on the mixing board." It's like, great. You've just basically added more fat and salt to this to make it sound a little bit different, but has nothing to do with the separation of the instruments. It's like, well, again, it'll always be.
But I do say those words.
So. Love it.
But people like what they like, and that's fine.
Yeah, they like fat and salt. We know that. All right, let's take a little break.
Flavor.
Let's take a little break, and then we're going to observe a moment of silence for the end of the line for a product. But let's talk first about. It's a sad moment coming up. Let's talk happy stuff. People are going back to work, and ZipRecruiter's there to help you find exactly the right person for your job openings. This is going to be a big year for a lot of businesses. Some industries are projected to grow even more this year. Sustainability, you bet. New eco-friendly products and services. Some of our advertisers are cropping up. Pet services are big this year. More training, walking, and feeding services for all those pets we all adopted during COVID, right? Fitness, health and wellness apps, non-traditional workout studios, kickboxing and CrossFit, and digital events and conferences, services for planning and hosting online events. Who do we know that does that? Home improvement, renovation and decoration businesses. If you're going to be stuck at home, might as well have a nice home. Look, if you work for or own a business in a growing industry like these, or any industry really, you probably need to hire as soon as possible. There's only one place to go to get the right employee, and that's ZipRecruiter. Right now, you could try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter is very cool for so many reasons. One posting there gets it to the widest possible audience. more than 100 other job boards, social media, everywhere. And then I really love this. ZipRecruiter uses its very powerful technology to look through resumes it already has to find the right candidates and send them to you so you can invite them to apply. And by the way, when candidates get an invite to apply, they are much more likely to actually apply. You can invite your top choices to apply to your job. They will respond. And often, in most cases, you will get a perfect individual in less than a day. Those great resumes start pouring in. And they don't pour into your inbox or your phone. No, they go to the ZipRecruiter interface where it's easy to rank them, check the boxes, find the right person, and hire them fast. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site in the U.S., according to G2 ratings. You can try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak, ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. I spell that out. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for helping us hire. We use them ourselves. And for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Thank you for supporting MacBreak Weekly, as always, by using those URLs that we give out so they know you saw it here. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. Today, it's the end of the line for BlackBerry.
Canada loves you back.
Key services, including network provisioning, if you're using a BlackBerry with BlackBerry's own OS, will shut down today. The phones will just no longer work. BlackBerry says its devices will no longer be expected. They say this in a nice Canadian way. Will no longer be no longer be expected to reliably function, including for data, phone calls, SMS, and 911. You know,
the little things.
The little things. You probably don't care. I love those BlackBerries, I tell you. And it wasn't just the BlackBerry phones, it's BlackBerry Playbook, their tablet, which never took off. All of them. And if it's running BlackBerry OS, today's the day. So a moment of silence.
My boss for 10 years was Crackberry Kevin.
That's right. You worked, or did you write for Crackberry, or you just...
I did. I wrote pieces to refute their eventual dominance of the smartphone.
Oh, you
universe.
were right.
I'm not going to be smug about it today because we lost Nortel, we lost 3DFX. We just keep losing these Canadian companies, Leo.
Well, the truth is you haven't lost BlackBerry. They pivoted in, I think, a very successful way. They bought QNX, a real-time operating system. They're doing very well in automotive. So BlackBerry, the company, survives, but not your phone. It was the last phone I owned before the iPhone in 2007.
There was a little bit of good news today in that Kevin Mitchell reacquired Crackberry.com from Future and is relaunching it for a post-BlackBerry world. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
I wonder what's he going to cover?
I don't know. Maybe we're going to put the crack in everything. You know, like crack apples, crack droids. Maybe it'll just be everywhere.
Or maybe just apple cider donuts. Maybe it's just like an apple cider donut.
Yes.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Could be.
BlackBerry cider vinegar.
The FAQ is at BlackBerry.com. BlackBerry 10 and BlackBerry OS services FAQ.
Yeah.
RIP.
Credit where credit's due. Credit where it's due. They did absolutely create a revolution.
Oh, yeah.
There was a time when the phones were really just, they played very simple games. You did texting. It was very, very exciting when you had a method of texting that involved having to just tap 2 digits instead of going through 3 at a time. They created a messaging platform that suddenly made everybody want to have a high-performance smartphone and made the networks want to be able to support high-performance business.
I go back even farther. I remember at the original Xbox launch, which would have been about 2001, because it's 20 years old, sitting with one of the first, it was a pager, but it had the BlackBerry keyboard on a pager, and messaging like crazy. And I thought, this is exciting. This is going to transform how people communicate. I remember at roughly the same time frame, maybe a couple of years later, interviewing the then chairman of the FCC, Michael Powell. And he was like on his BlackBerry. And I said, what are you doing? He says, well, I triage my email before, I don't respond to it, but I can delete it and delegate it from here before I get back to the office. It was a revolution. And I remember it really was a crackberry for me when I first got a BlackBerry. It wasn't.
Did you do the PIN messaging? Like CEOs would trade their PIN. The thing that, like, one of the signs to me that this was inevitable was at some point, they came out with a statement saying that they were going to have to add a layer of Microsoft ActiveSync to their infrastructure because they never imagined a world where someone would have more than one device. So that the whole BBM infrastructure was locked to the idea of one person, one PIN. And even then you have to log in and out
with a lot
on
of
different
messaging
devices.
solutions. Signal and WhatsApp all use a phone
WhatsApp,
number. Yeah. So I mean that lives with us. Somebody in the chat room remembers that I have mentioned this years ago, that when my kids were little, they would say, "Dad, get off your BlackBerry." This is before.
Do you have a favorite BlackBerry, Leo?
I really loved that first one, but my Pearl, the BlackBerry Pearl, is the last one I had, and that one's still in my museum.
I love the Bold. The Bold was like a Cadillac of BlackBerries with like a leather back. It was just.
Oh,
it was
wow! I never got that fancy one.
Oh, yeah.
You worked at Crackberry, so
I think it was a real showing the limitation of like when you're already in something, not being able to think of something new. Because I got, of course, they sent me one of the ones to test that was their own touchscreen version. Like we're moving, I think it's the Storm.
Oh, the Storm was awful. Oh my!
And it was
God.
just
it won BlackBerry Device of the Year.
Well,
gosh,
BlackBerry
it was so
Device.
bad.
BlackBerry.
No, my wife Lisa had a Storm when we first when she first started working for us. So that would have been 2008 or 9.
Right.
iPhone had already come out, and I said, "What are you doing with that?" Because that, in order to tap the screen, you actually had to click. It was like a mouse.
The whole
click.
screen was a button.
The whole
button.
screen.
Yeah, click, 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 click.
It was awful.
I used it for a trip. I actually was asked to use it and test it and everything else, and I used it for a trip, and I was like, I can't do this again.
It was her last
Verizon phone.
It was her
Verizon
last
wanted
BlackBerry too, because
it was Verizon.
She left it on top of a cab, drove off. It broke. I said, "Time for an iPhone." And
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Your subconscious was sending you a message. Listen to it very clearly.
But I'll tell you couldn't break that thing. It took her many, many tries.
It was amazingly flame resistant.
All right, let's see here. What else? Rumor. One more rumor. Apple might launch, according to The Economist, an audiobook service to join the Apple One bundle.
They've gotten pretty, they're doing a lot of audio work right now. I don't know what they're going to do with the service, but I can tell you there's a lot of articles that are for the Apple News that are in audio form. You can just set up a playlist. It's like a radio show. And
I think
done
that's
in a really
smart.
high quality.
There have been a number of programs, apps out that did that, but I think that's really smart. I think there are a lot of people who want to, in their commute, listen to news and read an article.
I have to say that now that I'm used to listening to it, I think that's part of why I stopped really reading as many magazines, is because I have The Economist and Foreign Affairs are both, with Foreign Affairs you have to wait. The Economist you get every week, and it's all of it's done in audio.
Is it human readers? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not machine.
Yeah, it's human readers.
I use an app called Autumn that works with the Atlantic, the New Yorker, Wired, Vanity Fair. All of the elite, the New York Review of Books, the New
Is it all human?
Republic. It's all very good human readers.
Yeah, so The Economist is really good. Foreign Affairs, a lot of them are actually done by Apple. They're like in partnership, voiceover provided in partnership by Apple. And then
Apple hired a bunch of people that we know to do that.
The interesting thing is that that when I hack through, if you use the Alexa app or whatever, you can ask your iPhone to play a Kindle book, right? That's the way to get around the Kindle book doesn't have audio, so it'll play it in the iPhone, but you have to kind of do this weird workaround. I will admit that I can listen to, if it's pure information, I can actually listen to the computer version faster than a human. Like it's easier. It's actually the diction means that I can play it back faster, and I can so it's an interesting. I didn't think that I'd ever say that I'd rather have a computer read a book to me, but the Kindle version, I can actually, if I'm just trying to absorb information.
And that's going to get better. Voice synthesis is
but if I want to absorb
better,
information, because you got to remember, I'm listening at 2x.
Right. Lisa does that too. I don't understand that. I can't absorb anything.
With a human, it's between 1.25 and 2, depending on how they talk.
With a
computer, it's like just 2x, just plow through it.
So I'm wondering what Apple has in its mind, because remember, they did do, of course, they sell books, iBooks, and they sell them from the publisher. They have been using Audible for the audiobooks in the iBook store. Audible has deals with, I think, almost all, if not all, the publishers. There are others
It's a disaster, by the way, to buy Audible books through iTunes.
No, I just use Audible. Yeah,
I did that.
Yeah.
It
was a good introduction to Audible. I think the only ones I ever bought were the Harry Potter books, and then I realized I'd get them, at Audible instead.
This is way better to get them through Audible in that area.
Yeah.
I think that Apple's only way to really break in, I don't know if they're going to or not, is to really change the way we think about books. And I think they had the opportunity to do that, and I don't know if they're going to.
What would you do?
Add video and AR and hyper, like make it a media platform as opposed to just words and pictures.
But see, I think people listen to books because they can't look. They're driving or they're watching.
Well, but I think they listen to books because there's no pictures. Like I'm sorry, but I don't buy books that are just words. Like if I open a book and it's all words, I'm going to listen to that. Like and so for me to look at a book, for me to have a book that I'm going to look at, I better have a lot of pictures, and when I open up, like I have this crazy book called the Modernist Cuisine. I think it's Modernist Cookbook or Modernist Cuisine. That
an audio cookbook is nonsense. Obviously,
but what I'm saying is, what I say when I open it up and they have these gorgeous. This is the former CTO of Microsoft or whatever that put this together.
Oh God, he's crazy. Yeah.
So it's incredible photos, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if this was video, like that's what I think. If he had went through all this work to light it and to set it all up, and I could have something on my iPad that was video of this thing, I would be, over the moon. But the problem is they keep on handing the content to magazine publishers, and they keep on making things that are kind of like a magazine with video. I don't want that. I want something new that's going to let me explore an idea that includes possibly AR and video and hyperlinks and
Did you get the stainless steel slipcase version of Modernist Cuisine?
Of course. Yeah.
Nathan Merville
they one on bread too.
Quite a guy. Yeah.
And the one that just came out is on pizza. I haven't bought the pizza.
Interesting.
Pizza. Yeah. I got so they're incredible.
It's a computer scientist's approach to cooking. I think it's interesting.
Well, it's not just computer scientists. It's 30 chefs.
Yeah. It was the cookbook of the year in 2012. So it's obviously done better than. I give it credit. Again,
but some of it's really written for chefs though. So the problem is you open it and you go, I don't know what that means. And it would be great if I had a video that showed me when you say that, what do you mean by that? And so that's the thing that, like that's what Heston again does really, really well is they show you what they mean for every recipe there's a little video.
Merville took the pictures in this. So
they're great pictures. I mean, it's an unbelievable collection.
Well, someday maybe I can own the $500 stainless steel version of modernist cooking, modernist cuisine.
It's really nice.
Yeah, now they've got bread, as you said.
Bread. A friend of mine got me bread because I was like, I can't afford the bread one, but it was given to me. And then they have one on pizza.
You have a good friend, let me tell you.
It was a good friend.
Yeah. Let's see. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what Apple does. I don't think creating another Audible makes much sense. There are other Audibles. There's Libro.fm. There's Downpour.com. But they all basically the same books because the publishers, for the most part, the publishers record them. And then, just like a bookstore, they're sold through other outlets. Yeah. Audible has its own studios, and they do record a lot of stuff there are Audible exclusives. But I guess that's what Apple could do.
And in addition to, if you would add it to Apple One, it becomes interesting where you're subscribing.
Yeah, I would do it. Yeah. All of them, by the way, are doing that. Amazon and Audible both are doing subscriptions where you get a certain, thousands of titles for your subscription.
I was about to say Amazon will sell you a package where you will get access to a big collection of Amazon Kindle books, a selection of Audible books, a selection of Comixology comics. It makes sense for Apple to make a play for this. I just don't know where they're going to get the content from.
Well, that's the thing. Is there stuff that's not being, I guess there is, not being recorded, but usually it's pretty obscure things that I don't know if anyone wants.
When the money in the public domain.
What you want is the best sellers. That's what you're going to sell, and those are already being recorded by Random House and Penguin and everything.
But again, if it's another couple dollars on top of your Apple One, to have that, then it becomes again, it's adding to the overall experience. Right now, there's a handful of things that I'm doing outside of the Apple ecosystem, which is like the Kindle and the for books with pictures. That's the only reason I get Kindle books, or the or the Audible, which is where I put all the other books. And so that's something that, as an Apple user, for me to be outside the ecosystem, Apple's got to look at that and go, well, it'd be really nice to give them something that they wanted too. So, and then of course it's just trying to get
a USDZ file for you.
Sorry.
Article in the Washington
article in the Washington Post about Apple's disappointment with exposure notification. Apple and Google, remember back in the early days of the pandemic, 22 years ago.
How long has it been, Leo?
That both companies released for their Android and iOS operating systems notification system. It's on both. I've turned it on both. I've never, ever gotten a notification.
You've been very careful.
Well, no, I mean, but I've been in public and occasionally, and on Thursday, we stay outside, but we went down to San Francisco, went to the Exploratorium, and went to actually Pier 39 was kind of scary, even though it was outdoors. It was very, very crowded. I would think among all those thousands of people that I ran across, I would have gotten one notification. Nothing, nada. More than 20 states don't even use it, including Florida and Texas, of course, because there is no COVID in those states. According to the Washington Post, even in states where millions have activated notifications, only a fraction of people who test positive for the virus report it to the system. California's system, for example, has been activated on more than 15 million devices. That's a good proportion of the population. But only 3% of the nearly 3.9 million cases reported since launch were logged onto the system. So how useful is it?
Almost like you needed a federal response to a federal pandemic.
Oh, really? Yeah, there's a thought.
Yeah. Like they can, just like the military, deliver the mail and fight pandemics. There's not like many things on your list.
Yeah. So anyway, what do we think? I mean, I think it was great that Silicon Valley responded to the crisis. They responded in a very Silicon Valley way. We can figure this out. We know how to.
Did you see the engineer was tweeting, or the former head of Apple's?
No. What did he say?
Medical crisis team. He had a whole tweet. I'll have to find it. He had a whole tweet thread up on what happened with it and his disappointment over the eventual reception.
My take on it was it was a good idea, but it was done in a vacuum. It was done without considering the needs of health officials, states, and most importantly of individuals, and so it just didn't play.
I mean, I think you can look at the NFL and you can see why people don't do those. It's like someone was around somebody who had COVID and now they can't go to work. I think that's why. I mean,
so that's the nobody wants to know is what you're saying.
Well, no one wants to. No one.
If we didn't test for it, then no one would know, and then we wouldn't have any COVID.
No, but I'm just saying I think that is a contributing factor as people see if I'm in a contact system and now it says that, maybe I don't have it, but I don't want to have to not go to work for 5 days because
people lie about getting sick. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying that even if they don't, even if it's true and they were near you but if you don't have it, but the problem is now you have to isolate.
So we just don't know.
Right.
The guy's name is Myung Cha. Here is his Twitter thread at CHA_MYOUNG. I haven't read it yet, so I'll just go through it. He said it was one of the most exciting projects I've ever worked on with an unbelievable amount of technical talent, including the guy in the Post-it note costume. I don't know what's going on there.
I want that story.
It was always a challenge to convince someone that it was as good as contact tracing, which I think you didn't convince me. I don't think it is, which is like asking whether an email is as good as a nice holiday card. Of course, they're not the same, he says, but I can send a nice e-card instantly to 100 people and get mostly the same result. The biggest pushback we got was, why wouldn't we allow governments around the world to use the API to collect a ton of data about users? Well, of course. Yeah. Right. No, we're not going to do that. User privacy is important, but that does, in fact, often limit the abilities of contact tracing. Because
I know, as someone who gets, I've been tested about on average once a week for the last, 3 or 4 months because of production. Every time you're in a production, you have to test 72 hours a day. And when you get there and everything else. And the thing is that, for instance, if I'm going to LA, I will not leave my house until I have the test back. So I'll be late if I have to. If I don't get my PCR back because it's delayed or something like that, I won't leave the house, because if it turns out that I'm positive, it means that I'll invalidate the entire production.
Right.
You know, like if I show up and find out later that
They don't
it was
require
there,
you to have a vaccine. I'm surprised.
No,
They just say testing is all they need. Yeah, I'm
They test
actually
all the
very
time.
surprised. Although having a
time.
vaccine, as we now know with Omicron, doesn't prevent you from getting it and spreading it. It just means you won't get sick and go to the hospital.
The negative consequences.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, he does go on and on. It's probably worth a read. At Cha_M Young. All right, let's see what else is going on in the world. The Apple is working on a Formula One racing film with Top Gun Mavericks Joseph Kosinski, Jerry Bruckheimer, Aaron Kruger, starring Brad Pitt.
I thought you were going to say an F1 race car for a second. I thought we were going to have that.
Oh, no. Brad Pitt will play a racer who comes out of retirement to mentor a younger driver and take his final stab at glory on the track as the younger driver's teammate. This is obviously fiction.
I would normally think that this is not a good, like I would be like, okay, whatever. But Ford versus Ferrari was surprisingly
That was a great
good.
movie. Yeah,
like,
I really
it was a great
enjoyed
movie,
that.
and I was like, did not expect that at all. I literally only watched it because so many people told me it was so good, and then when I watched it, it's really good. I'm not a car person.
It's not Brad. Yeah, it's not Brad. I actually love Formula One and still don't think they make great movies. There've been a lot of racing movies. Only a handful have been really worth.
Good Netflix
race the
documentaries, though.
around.
The Pitt
I like
has
the Iron Man version because there was like
he's flying.
missiles.
Pitt and Kosinski once tried to make a racing movie together called Go Like Hell, where he would have played Carroll Shelby. They wanted it to be the right stuff of the racetrack. Not a bad idea. Matt Damon played Shelby, of course, in Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
Anyway, look for that on your Apple TV Plus. Or Foundation, I think, kind of flopped.
Didn't finish it.
Invasion didn't start it.
Yeah.
Ted Lasso. That's about it.
I got in this really weird place where, like, during the whole last 3 years, I have not been able to just physically take the anxiety of stressful TV shows. So I've only watched stuff that I know was emotionally inert or I've seen 100 times before and wouldn't affect me. Anyway, I had nothing left. So, like, a lot of these shows are great, like on Netflix, on Disney, on Apple. They look fantastic. People say they're amazing. I just can't bear to watch them.
It can be grim. It can be grim.
Can I tell you that? Can I tell you that I'm laughing because you're talking about Ted Lasso. I still have yet to see the rest of like season 2 because I got like without spoiling anything of any kind. It's like, oh, it looks like Ted is about to become very, very sad and about something.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to see Ted Lasso to be sad. I think I'll switch to some Three Stooges. I'll switch to some Thin Man movies. I'll get back to it definitely. But
I got my own problems
right at this moment. You're here to make me feel happy, not feel, if even Ted Lasso can like be feeling like everyone's against him. Oh no.
No, and they just keep walking.
Yeah, it's hard. The production is it's about a year before you get something to ready to go, and I just wonder, where people were a year ago.
It took everybody along. I mean, Amazon was not particularly good. It's still, I don't think anyone's going to really pick up on Amazon until the Lord of the Rings stuff comes out. And then, there's a couple things that people seem to like.
That's taking forever, though.
I've been I'm a Wheel of Time fan, and I was extremely disappointed by the Wheel of Time. That just didn't
watch it.
do it.
Yeah.
And I even watched Book of Boba Fett, and there was no REM slug in it, so I turned it off immediately. Like, what kind of Star Wars are
without REM
serving?
slug? There is no Boba Fett. I think we know that, right?
Yeah.
It's like Tatooine. You should be there.
Yeah, exactly. I did think it would be fun if Rumslig was in the.
And if those who don't know why we're mentioning Rumslig, well, you're just gonna have to go back in time and listen to some old MacBreak.
I know, Alex, you have a policy about not accepting unsolicited ideas, but I've got a spec script for Rumslig that's nothing like the /fic for Babylon 5 that it started off as. I really think we got somebody.
Greedo. I think it's going to be a hit.
Yes, there's a part in it for me, but that's completely incidental. If I were not perfect for the role, I'm not even pitching myself forward.
And a baby bantha are on an adventure that's very.
It's what's best for the project. It's what's best for the project.
Yeah, exactly.
If you guys don't have anything else you want to talk about, I think maybe the time has come to take our final break and get you ready for your picks of the week. Agreed?
I'm good.
Indeed.
Okay. hey, we're doing all right. It's the beginning of the year. There isn't a lot to talk about. Apple's quarter did end on Christmas Day. So when do those quarterly results come out now? It'll be end of this month, probably?
End of the month.
Yeah. So we will have something to talk about in a couple of weeks.
Eventually.
Eventually. I'm sorry.
How much more wealthy Apple people are than we are.
I look forward.
Let's talk all about that.
Oh, God. I look forward to every week to Thursday now, because Thursday was when our Imperfect Foods box comes. And I am loving Imperfect Foods. I've done a variety of farm boxes and, as you know, different food delivery things. This is the best one I've ever done. And I love the idea. That's why we signed up at first for Imperfect Foods, because Imperfect Foods is designed to reduce food waste. Here's a cringeworthy stat to start the new year. Every year, 35% of the food supply goes unsold or uneaten in the U.S. because it's not perfect. It's not just right. Imperfect Foods is working to turn this around by sourcing foods that would otherwise fall through the cracks of our food system. And I have to point out, at first I thought, well, I'm going to get, radishes that look like Richard Nixon. I'm going to have weird oranges. No. Everything I get is great. It's amazing what the grocers won't accept. For instance, pomegranates, they're just a little bit smaller than your head, so that the grocers say, no, we want the giant ones. But these taste better. I've had some of the best produce I've ever had. Combating climate change, I know, is something we all want to do, but it feels overwhelming. What if you could just use some more of that food that's already been produced and reduce food waste? Imperfect Foods. It's a grocery delivery service. By the way, it goes well beyond their original roots. Now you can get not just groceries, but all sorts of things. Check imperfectfoods.com. Before I go on, I should say it's not available in every area. So check imperfectfoods.com and see if they deliver in your area. I was very happy to see that they did. You personalize your weekly grocery order. We do that every week. It was easy during the holidays to put it on hold because we didn't need it, because we were making a lot of, we had a lot of Christmas stuff to do and cookies and things. But we've restarted again. Thursday, I guess, our first box for the new year. Fresh seasonal produce, pantry staples, yummy snacks. They have a heritage chicken that we get every week because it's the best chicken I've ever had. I roast it up. It's amazing. We look forward to it. On average, just give you some stats. Imperfect Foods customers save 6 to 8 pounds of food with every order. 6 to 8 pounds of food that be fed to animals, thrown away, discarded. Unlike on-demand delivery companies, Imperfect delivers weekly by neighborhood. That produces 25 to 75% fewer emissions than individual trips to the grocery store. Oh, I love, by the way, highly recommend their salami, and they have a charcuterie package that is fantastic. I had to tell Lisa, stop getting that. Plus, because I would eat it every time. Plus, goodbye to packaging guilt. I love it that I don't get 100 plastic bags. It's the only national grocery delivery company that makes it easy to return your packaging after every order. They're nice cardboard boxes, a cardboard inset. There's not a lot of packaging. That always made me feel guilty. Not with Imperfect Foods. I am such a huge fan. I just really want you to try this. In fact, we've got a great deal for you. Right now, Imperfect Foods is offering you 20% off your first 4 orders when you go to imperfectfoods.com, but you got to use the promo code MacBreak. So that way we get credit, but you get 20% off your first 4 orders. That's up to an $80 value. Imperfectfoods.com. You just have to use the promo code MacBreak. Just love it. We just love this. We are very happy. Join the movement. It makes you feel good, and it's wonderful produce. It's wonderful stuff. Imperfectfoods.com. Promo code MacBreak. It's exactly what I was looking for. Imperfectfoods.com. Promo code MacBreak. This would be good for your New Year's resolution. Some nice, fresh, delicious produce that's good for the world. Pick of the week time, Andy Ihnatko, The Writing of the Gods.
The Writing of the Gods, my favorite book. I bought this on Audible, but obviously it's anywhere you can experience this. One of my favorite science books of all time.
I'm buying it right now. I've got a credit. I got to use it.
There you go. This is all about how the Rosetta Stone was decoded and how Egyptian hieroglyphs were first were first deciphered, and it's told like a gorgeous novel with freak characters that were just had the same kind of like warped lateral thinking minds that could possibly handle this job. Like if you know about the Rosetta Stone, obviously you think, oh well, geez, finally this lost language of hieroglyphics was cracked because they found in 1799 they found a stone that had Greek and Coptic and this mysterious hieroglyphics, and finally because they knew what the Greek was, they knew what the Coptic was, they were able to. No, it wasn't that at all. If anything, it made things even. It gave them what they needed to unlock finally how to decipher this language, but it led them down so many false ends. Because imagine having like say, oh wait, I know what if I know what this is in Italian, that must make it so easy for me to translate to Spanish. But no, there's so many words that are very, very similar, and plus you have no idea what was going through this culture's heads when they were putting this language together. And so, like, starting with, okay, do you start from left to right or right to left? Do you go from top to bottom? This mark right here, is it an intentional mark? Was it something that was like damage that was done while this thing was unearthed? Is this a missing piece of text, or was that a gap that was actually made in when they realized things like this? After like struggling with some section for like ages, they realized that, you know what this mark means? This mark, no joke, this mark means that the person who was engraving this said, disregard this mark because I just put it in here because I thought it would look prettier if I did it this way.
Oh, how funny.
And so it's basically about this small French group and this small English group who are kind of almost like in a Russia versus United States space race for the national prestige of being the first to actually break this language. And it's told in this beautifully elaborate novelistic sort of way that lays down the groundwork for, well, here's how people were trying to guess what hieroglyphics were for the centuries before that. Because in the 3rd or 4th century, there was an active movement to destroy anything Egyptian. So the culture was gone, the writing was gone. Wow. They would not understand the context of anything. So basically, it was a team of a guy in England who was like an expert linguist and a guy in France who was an expert in Egyptology, and both of them basically needed all of those skills to solve it. And again, I'm only halfway through it, so I don't know if they actually cracked it or not. So I don't want to.
I believe they might have, but
they did work it out. But again, you take something that's so simple.
I love that kind of book.
The Rosetta Stone. Oh, it's one line in a lot of like history books.
Yeah.
But then like no, it took them 20 years, and it drove people insane because. Wait. It makes you think about how the English language is so weird too. Yeah. That like if you just look at this as a bunch of markings, what does the apostrophe mean? Does the apostrophe mean? Oh, wait a minute. You mean that the apostrophe doesn't mean anything in and of itself? It means that we decided to delete some letters that you need in order to figure out what this word means. Gosh, dang it.
The Writing of the Gods, The Race to Decode the Rosetta Stone. Edward Dolnick is the author. You know why I bought it immediately? Because one of my other favorite books, in fact, Simon Winchester wrote a whole bunch of books like this, is about the creation of the Oxford English Dictionary.
Yes.
And I know you've read this. I just love this kind of stuff, kind of the story of something we all kind of know about, but the story behind it is great. Winchester writes some wonderful books in that vein. I can't wait to read it. Unfortunately, I'm reading The Wheel of Time right now. It's going to be about 8 years before I can get to any other book. So anyway, good choice. I like it. Thank you, Andy. How about you, Alex Lindsay? Your pick of the week.
Yeah, real quick, one thing that's not really MacBreak, but definitely something to track if you're looking at virtual events and so on and so forth, is that Zoom, over the break, between when we did this, acquired a partner of ours, Liminal. Yes. So we do a lot of work with Liminal, and it's going to be a big deal. And we had the folks from Liminal and the CTO from Zoom on office hours last week. And you can check that out on YouTube. But talking, kind of answering our questions related to what that looks like. It's a pretty exciting for us doing virtual events.
What is Liminal? What is Liminal's business? What do they do?
Liminal basically took full advantage of, or still takes full advantage of, Zoom's API. So their API and their SDK to basically allow you to customize everything about how Zoom works. And so
it's a front end to Zoom.
It's a front end. Well, it's a front end, but you can basically what it does is it Zoom ISO, which is something that Liminal makes, lets us take all of the ISO feeds out of a Zoom meeting. So I can say I want 20 people, and like our Office Hours 2.0 that we're working on, Zoom ISO will let us actually take the isolated outputs of 20 people and put them into our switcher automatically, 4 per computer. Just pump these all out. Zoom OSC lets us have a see everything that's happening, who's joining, who has their hand up, and then we can say grab this stuff and move it over there. And we're building very complex systems for the next Office Hours, where basically, because Zoom ISO is sending all those things out, and we know who is going out into the switcher, and then we can say in the back of our Q&A system, I'm going to go to these 4 people out of 20. It will build the super source, put the lower thirds in. All that stuff gets done automatically without us having to do anything. So when I hit answer, it just builds that for us. And it's all doing it because we have all that data from Zoom and because we can control it. But we can, and there's just tons of ways to automate the events. And so with that team inside of Zoom, we're really excited about the ability to create very complex events, inside of it, as that team kind of takes full advantage of what could be possible.
Go to officehours.global. Wednesdays show 645, a Zoom special. And you can see all of the information about.
And that's Brendan Idelson, who's the CTO.
Nice.
Zoom came on and talked to us. So along with Andy and Jonathan from Liminal and Sam, who runs the events for Zoom as well. So it was a pretty good mix. My pick for the week is the Linsoul KZ. They're horrible at names. The KZZS 10 Pro. This is actually what I'm wearing right now. For the price, it's just an incredible
$50.
It's $50. It sounds really good. They're very comfortable, and I've started to use them for just my day-to-day when I'm on a Zoom meeting. They're not quite as transparent as the Sidekicks. These are the little Sidekicks that I've been using, but the bass response is a lot better, and the thicker cable actually makes it easier for me to throw on and take off. I mean, it's much like what we would have as an in-ear monitor. It's just that it's a lot less expensive.
Yeah, no kidding. The in-ear monitors I'm wearing are $1,500.
Exactly, and I'm not going to say that they're
better, but
well, and it was great. My daughter needed some in-ears for her band, and I just for $50 I was able to get them, and I've been using them a lot. And at first, it was actually because I'm so used to just regular IFBs, whether they're the audio implements or Ear Heroes,
and
or whatever.
They're not famous for audio fidelity on those IFBs.
So when I put these in, it was overwhelming. Wow. Like it was so much data and so much bass and everything else. Yeah. And now I'm used to it. But it's a really for $50, it's an incredible value. And there's some ones that in that string that company makes. I think that they OEM them, so there's a bunch of different ways to buy them. But they're really interesting, like high quality, and again, for your day to day, I don't want to spend a ton of money, but I want an in-ear that I'm going to hear a lot, and I can be in meetings, and it's comfortable, and I don't have to. Or I mean, even if you just want to listen to stuff.
They even come with a mic. Oh, that's kind of cool. Do you use?
I don't get them with the mic.
No,
I didn't get the one with the mic because I put it over the back. I'm doing typical it's over the back of
behind you. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, so I don't use them
those
that way.
Those mics never are very good, but
yeah. But anyway, for $50 is probably the best set of headphones that I've ever seen for $50.
Nice. So. Well, it underscores what I've always thought, which is that headphones are vastly overpriced. The actual components are not expensive. And we spend a lot of money on headphones that we probably are throwing away.
I mean, there's another version of this that I ordered that I'm waiting for it to come in. Is like $130, but it's got like 8 elements per ear, and I can't believe that I'm buying something with that much potential. I've talked to a couple people that said it just sounds amazing.
Well, when you don't put all the money in Bluetooth radios and all these other accelerometers, and you just put it into the drivers, you can actually get some pretty good headphones. For
copper wire, done.
Copper wire, simple.
Move on to the drivers.
It works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Linsoul. They're on Amazon for $50. Visit the Linsoul store. Rene, Ritchie, pick of the week.
So, I apologize. Sorry. This is a big controversy, and I don't want to get too deep into the controversy, but I want to give you some background as to why I'm recommending this and not recommending it at the same time. So late last year, YouTube removed the dislike counter on videos, not the dislike button. You can still tap that. And every time you tap dislike on a video, YouTube is less likely to show you a similar video in the future. So that functionality is still there, but they got rid of the public dislike count. And they did it because after talking to a lot of much smaller, less privileged, less mainstream creators, they found out that they were often being brigaded with dislikes to try to silence them or to deplatform them. And because public dislike counts are just not common on social media, like they're not on Twitter, they're not on Instagram, they're not on TikTok, YouTube felt that the value they added were not sufficient for the harm that they caused. So they removed that public counter. Creators can still see it inside Creator Studio, but this upset a lot of people. And I know some people will say it upset the privileged people, the people with millions of subscribers, or the typical, white tech bro dude that you'd imagine would get upset by things like this. But there are people who use the dislike counter as a way to sort of prejudge the value of a tutorial, a how-to video, whether it was outdated, whether it no longer applied, whether it was spammy or scammy or something. And it was a very glanceable way of doing that because unlike comments, you can either turn dislike counts on and off. You can't editorialize them. You can't prune them. So, of course, people being people, the API was still around for a while. So a Chrome extension was made that would let you install it, and that would resurface the dislike count for your experience on YouTube, which is something I think YouTube should probably do on their own, but they haven't yet. So this plugin is doing it. YouTube has since removed the API, but they've been able to crowdsource through a bunch of different archives and different resources, historical data, and they're also allowing users to contribute their own data towards keeping this going in the future. So it's an imperfect solution, but if a lot of your YouTube experience was tied into tutorials and you use that as your quick barometer for the value of the tutorial, this plugin would at least give you that quick glanceable dislike count back.
Yeah. I thought that was incredible. I was on Reddit and spotted that somebody had on Data Hoarder had actually scraped or downloaded the entire bolus of likes, dislikes data for basically snapshot of the entirety of YouTube. Is that correct? I was like, how do you do that? And that's how they're extrapolating. Yeah, amazing. That's a lot of dislike for taking that feature off.
Well, there's actually a lot of data mining that goes on related to that. So, like, if you apply to a lot of different things, a variety of different organizations, they will search your social history, even your deleted tweets, back to the time that you signed up for Twitter. That's everything. So
be careful what you say on Twitter is the bottom line.
Everywhere. I mean, it's just, but that's just an example. So, they've really, that's a big machine that is constant. I mean, and obviously for good, it's being used by something, stuff like the Internet Archive. But there's a lot of data management systems that keep track of all of it all the time so that people can figure stuff out about other people. That's the thing that people do.
Andy Ihnatko, a little bird tells me you're going to be doing something for our club this week.
That's right. I'm doing an AMA for Club Twit next week. So I think that part's being done, of course, on the Discord channel. So if there's anything you've ever wanted to ask me, I don't know what people would want to ask me. I could make up a good answer for pretty much anything you want to ask. So geopolitics, find the James Webb Telescope versus should they put it on Lagrange point A instead of Lagrange point B? I'll let you know what I think about that. Just fire those questions off. So I'm looking forward to it.
What day and time do we know? Friday.
I don't have it in front.
Usually around.
It's next week, I think. Aunt reminded me today to make sure that
next week. Okay.
Yes, it is next week, but you're going to want to get those questions in, I think.
Well, and you're going to want to join Club Twit because that's the only way you can hear it. We'll also post it after the fact on the Twit Plus feed. Club Twit is a ad-free version of all of our shows that you can get for $7 a month. So you get ad-free versions. You get access to the Discord channel, including Friday, January 14th at 10 a.m., Andy Ihnatko's AMA. And then if you can't be there at 10 a.m. on the 14th, that's 10 a.m. Pacific, by the way, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you can't get there at 10 a.m. Pacific, you can always listen to it on the special Twit Plus feed, which includes not just those things, but all sorts of other stuff that doesn't make it to the podcasts before and after shows. Chatter, our Untitled Linux show, the Giz Fizz with Dick D. Bartolo, Stacy's Book Club, Stacy Higginbotham's Book Club. There's a lot of stuff. I think this is the best $7 you'll ever spend, but I'm biased. $7 a month. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to find out more. We also have corporate memberships, and I think we just got another corporate member. Thank you. Appreciate it. So the club goes on. It's really helped us kind of smooth out the ups and downs through COVID, and it's also been a great community. We really enjoy it. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you, Andy. When are you going to be on GBH in Boston next?
Around the usual time, Friday at 12:30. Go to wgbhnews.org live or later to listen.
Very good. Rez Witz in our Discord says, thank you, Rene Ritchie, for the Nebula videos over the Christmas break. They got him through a couple of tough days. Nice that you were working on the holidays. YouTube.com/Rene Ritchie. Or you can go through Nebula, right?
Yeah, and I just started a new exclusive series on Nebula. Like, a lot of people asked me for a studio tour, but the way that YouTube works, if you put off-topic videos up, it's not good. It's like a restaurant that serves Shanghai dumplings suddenly giving you haggis. It's just not what anybody expects and is going to be happy about. So I ended up putting that series up on Net.
You like haggis? Ooh.
There's always 5% of anyone who'll be happy. But I'm putting up the series of the studio tour on Nebula so people can watch it there. And it doesn't
how do people subscribe to Nebula?
There's a lot of ways to do it. You can just go to nebula.app and subscribe there. I usually tell people to go to CuriosityStream because they'll give you Nebula for free when you sign up for CuriosityStream, and I figure that's a better deal. So yeah, you can go there and and just check it out.
Very nice. Thank you, Rene. And of course, Alex Lindsay is the major domo at officehours.global. I say you're the major domo because nobody knows what that means, so it really doesn't put you in a box of any kind.
Exactly.
But you'll find him there many hours. And, of course, it's a 24-hour operation, officehours.global, and he's at 090.media. And the Liminal Zoom acquisition, the topic of the week from last Wednesday.
So when the Senate subcommittee tries to have hearings on this, they try to pull in whoever's in charge. Don't talk to me. I'm just the major domo.
No one knows what he does.
I hope you find that guy because I have a word to pick with him too, believe you me.
I've been trying to find the right title for Alex. I think I finally found it. Major Domo. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Rene. Thank you, Andy. Most of all, thanks to you for listening and watching MacBreak Weekly. If you want to do it while we do it live, it's back on at Tuesdays, thanks to the holidays. I hope you enjoyed our best of episode last week. Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. The live stream is at live.twit.tv. If you're watching live, chat live at irc.twit.tv. That's, of course, open to all, or club members in our Discord channel devoted to MacBreak Weekly. After the fact, you can, of course, get everything we do. We're podcast, right? That means you can listen after the fact. Go to twit.tv for any of our shows. For this one, it's twit.tv/mbw. Are we going to turn on transcripts for MacBreak Weekly? We've turned it on for the Tech Guy, and I think we're going to turn on for a couple of shows. Steve already does those, so maybe we'll have those transcripts available as well at the website a little bit after. We're getting a robot to do it, so they'll be interesting at least. Twit.tv/mbw. You can also watch the YouTube channel. There's a dedicated YouTube channel. Click the like button, if you will. Don't click the dislike button. And there's always your favorite podcast application. In fact, if you subscribe in that, you'll get it automatically on a Tuesday afternoon. And you know you're going to have the latest MacBreak Weekly anytime you want to listen. And if your podcast player allows for reviews, please leave us a 5-star review. Let the world know about what is now, I think, one of the longest running Apple podcast, technology podcast, 15 years in the making. MacBreak.
Episode 800 next week. We should have a cake.
We should have a cake.
Well, let me put it that way. I intend to buy a cake for myself.
You can have a Little Debbie snack cake if you wish.
Oh no! I'm going to the bakery department at that good restaurant.
Oh, a real
800
cake.
Episodes.
Yeah, 800. Although, when we started doing this, people were saying, "Oh, we should celebrate every time it was 100." I said, "Dude, We'll celebrate when we get to 1,000, and that's not so far off either. Actually, just a few years away, and we will be there.
Yeah,
I don't know if we'll be around to validate Alex's prediction for AR in 15 years, but
we will.
Maybe. Why not?
Maybe it'll be okay.
80.
Maybe it'll be safe to fly for me to fly to California
by then.
Over then too.
Possibly.
No, we'll be around an AR table, Andy. We'll all be sitting around an AR table.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or
we talked about that. I just want to point out that we talked about that at Twit, like on a Twit at some point. Like, what if we had just the heads that were?
No, that was the plan.
Capturing.
That was the plan. And day one, when we started doing video, I wanted to have the same technology that they used on the site to make me dev null.
Right.
Apparently had been shrunken down to PC size. It could easily be done. And unfortunately, you guys would all have to wear rubber suits with ping pong balls on it. But other than that,
not a deal breaker.
My charisma cannot be quantized or packetized, sir.
I'm just saying there's a Memoji version of the show somewhere in the future.
Yes.
We could do Memojis tomorrow. You want to do it next week? I think, didn't we have, Odocta do a Memoji on Twit when I was gone? He didn't do it when I was here, notice. He waited till
sounds likely
the teacher wasn't in the room before he did that one. And yes, and you can all wear your rubber suits at home too, which would be that's completely
fashionable.
Way ahead of you, boss.
Andy and I are in PJs. That's the truth.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Happy New Year. We're glad to be back in 2022 year. But now I'm sorry to say you got to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Do you have an iPhone, an Apple Watch, an iPad, or any number of Apple devices? Well, you have got to check out iOS Today with me, Micah Sargent, and Rosemary Orchard. We cover all things iOS and help you get the most out of your devices.